and welcome to learnmycomputer.com. Today we're going to learn about selecting files in a more specific way. Last time we talked about selecting multiple files by clicking to an empty place on the desktop and dragging with the mouse button held down and selecting multiple items by putting a box around them and letting go of the mouse. Again, we can move multiple items by selecting all of them and then just dragging one item. Today we're going to learn about selecting non-contiguous items. So let's say, for instance, I wanted to select only letter to Joel and the koala bear. And if I were to try and draw a box around just those two, I would be selecting all these other files. So that makes it kind of impossible. So we're going to show you the other way to do this, selecting multiple files. And the way to do this is to use a button on your keyboard. I have a representation of the keyboard down here just to give you an idea of what this button is. It is called the Ctrl key, and it's in the lower left-hand corner of your keyboard. And when I hold mine down here, you'll see it lights up on the keyboard. So that way you can know that I'm holding it down. The letters on the button are Ctrl. It just stands for control. This gives you a little bit better control of what's going on the screen when you hold down this button. So I'm going to hold down the control button now and show you that that allows me to select letter to Joel and then select the koala bear, and I can select them both at the same time, and I can even deselect them. As long as I hold down that control button, I can keep selecting and deselecting whatever I want. I can select more files as well. And that gives me a little bit more control over what I select. Now, when I go to drag these files, I want to let go of the control button. And then I can select one of them and drag all of them as long as they continue to be selected. Now this is definitely something that you want to practice, because at first it can be a little confusing because you won't quite understand. It takes a little bit of practice, I guess, to work with the control button and know when to let go of it and when to keep it held down. But as long as I hold it down, I can select whatever I want. If I see something that's already selected, I can deselect it if I want by just clicking on it. And as long as that button is held down, I'm good. Now if I let go of it, when I want to drag the files, then I can drag the whole lot of them. But what happens is sometimes people select the files that they want, and they might spend a lot of time selecting the files that they want, and then when they get back to it, they say, oh, well, I want this file too, and if they're not holding down the control button, it deselects all the other ones. So that's where people often get frustrated, because they spent a lot of time selecting files and now they've deselected them and they can't go back. So just make sure that you hold that control button down the whole time until you've got what you selected, and then you let it go to drag them or do whatever you want with them. But another thing that I do want to mention is if you do indeed want to add another file after you've selected them and after you've let go of the control key, you can click again on the control key and go back to what you were doing and select the files that you want. And then you just click on one that's selected and you can drag them wherever you want on the screen, and they all go together very nicely. One other thing that I want to mention: if you do hold down the control key and drag items, instead of just dragging them to a new place, it makes a completely new copy. So unless this is what you want to do, that can be kind of surprising. See, there's a window here that tells you it's copying because it takes a little while, depending on how many items you've selected. And then when this is done copying, you'll see that it has whole new copies of the files. So this can confuse people as well. Sometimes I'll look at people's computers and they will have done this and they'll have multiple copies of the same files, and they'll wonder why. Well, that's because they held down the control key while they dragged files. Okay, this is a little bit more complicated than what we've been doing, but you might want to watch this video a couple of times this time. And please email me at joel@learnmycomputer.com if you have any questions or comments. Joel@learnmycomputer.com, and I will see you next week.